markets or approaching our development as if somebody was doing us a favor. I think it's very important for us to get to a place where we're very confident in the fact that we ourselves, you know, any organization or any company would be, you know, lucky to have you, and they aren't doing you any favors. You know, you're not, you know, a charity case. No one is helping you. You yourself are, you know, are good enough, and you're valuable enough. And I think that's first of all, getting that mindset right is very important, because it really helps for you to focus when you're, you know, when you start to think about developing yourself in a career or entering into a career, first of all. I wanted to talk about some, you know, kind of things that I consider key skills, key things that you can practice, key things that you can do that would really help people develop themselves and really help propel people in their careers. And I think the first thing is, you know, seeing leadership as a choice and being a leader even when you're not in a management role. I think it's very important for people to realize that you don't have to have the title of a manager or a leader or, you know, the head of something before you start practicing actually being, you know, being a leader and taking up, you know, taking up initiative to be a leader. And I say this because I think those are the type of things that make people stand out. I've put down roughly, you know, some notes here. And I said, really just how you come across to people, you know, being present, being able to, you know, speak up, being able to let people know what your, you know, what your opinions are, being able to put across, you know, what your opinions are, being able to take on other people's opinions within a team without actually, you know, making anybody feel less worthy of themselves, or anyone feeling as if they're not qualified, but actually being able to take people's ideas on board, and being able to really collaboratively work, you know, work within a team. For example, taking initiative. I know that's a really big thing. For example, when it was the start of the lockdown, there was a lot of things like the furlough scheme was a very, very new thing that no one had ever heard of before. And I kind of took it upon myself before I was asked to, and started to read a lot, ask questions, attend webinars and seminars on the furlough scheme to understand what exactly it was. And so when it came to, you know, when it came to actually bringing the furlough scheme within my organization, my director just said, you know, we're going to be meeting with the partners. I don't really want to talk about the furlough scheme. I think you should lead that meeting. Am I a HR leader? No, but I took that upon myself, and those are some of the ways that you can propel yourself, develop yourself, and also put yourself forward for opportunities. I also want to talk about commercial awareness as well. I think this is a great way to develop your own skills, but also a way for other people to see you as a developed version of yourself. And all that is really is just understanding the industry that you're in, understanding the industry, or maybe the industry you want to go in, for those people who are still searching for roles, and being able to understand, right, this is the world that we're in today. This is how my industry, maybe finance or HR, healthcare, what's going on in my industry and how is it affecting the world, and being able to bring that to your organization. Sometimes identifying problems, identifying issues, identifying things that are threats within your organization and bringing them is your opportunity to develop yourself. And it's your opportunity to, you know, show that you are being proactive, and show that you are, you know, you are worthy of people looking onto you and relying upon you as well. Your attitude, this is a really big thing, because sometimes attitude isn't something that we realize that we have. Attitude isn't something that, you know, we think about too much, but the way you come across to people, and how people see you, how people perceive you is very, very important. So consistently having your, you know, having a check on yourself and how do I come across to people, asking, you know, even the way you take feedback, is very important. If you want to develop yourself, develop your skills, is asking questions early on, in your role, in your career, and asking people how did I do? And even if they don't give you the feedback that you had hoped for, it's being able to take that and say, okay, I've gotten this feedback, it's not so great, how do I do better? And, you know, being open to constructive criticism as well. I think I've mentioned about, you know, you being proactive, and also planning your own development. It's very important for you to plan your own development. The truth is, people miss out on opportunities because they think that everyone around them knows that, you know, they are looking for a promotion or they're looking for a job or whatever. But you have to allow people to know that this is what my aspirations are. So the people that you report to should know that, you know, you aspire to be, you know, maybe a business partner, a leader, a manager, whatever it is, that so that they're aware that this is what this person wants to do. And so that when opportunities do come up, they remember you. Having people surrounding yourself with people that can support you and where you want to go. I think it's very important to have somebody that, you know, you can call. You know, I don't like to say mentors too much because I think it can be a bit, it's one of those things, but, you know, whether you want to call it a mentor or not, but somebody that you think can guide you, somebody that can advise you, can help you like see the light in your next steps. But also having sponsors, because mentors are, you know, very different from sponsors. Sponsors are those people that always have your best interests at heart. So there's, you know, there's an opportunity, and even when you're not present, they say, oh, I know the person, I know a great person for this job, I know the person who can do this, and they have your back. They're almost holding placards with your name on it, because they think that you are the best person for the job. So I think, yes, that's a really, really great, it's a really, really great thing to have. And also just expanding your network. I think a lot of us now kind of undermine the value of great network. We're surrounded by people in lots of different professions, and we don't have the ability to, say, for example, you want a new job, you can't speak to the people around you, but you have to utilize every network you have around you, your closest network, and expanding that. Using tools like LinkedIn to expand your network. A lot of people have gotten jobs from just being proactive on LinkedIn, speaking about, you know, the topics within their industry, writing articles on LinkedIn, have made people attracted to certain individuals, and I think it's very useful, you know, to do that. Attend networking events. If you go on Eventbrite and type in, you know, your industry, you see so many events. Attend these events and speak to people. Don't just stay in a box and expect things to kind of happen. Attend these things. Now everything is virtual, so you don't even have to, you know, necessarily leave your house, but you can attend these things, ask questions, you know, you can send messages to people, you can cold call companies, like people cold call companies all the time. And so, yeah, I think, and also being very, 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 very intentional about what you want to do with your career, how you want to, you know, how you want to move your career forward. And just knowing exactly where you want to go. And things won't always work out exactly how you plan them to go. You might have diversions, you might have sideways moves, but just being intentional about exactly what you want to do and how every step that you take is leading you to where you want to be. And I think that pretty much kind of summarizes everything I have before we go into the questioning. I think the last thing is just, you know, ongoing learning. Personal development is not something that stops. It never, ever, ever stops. it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and it's something that you have to do regardless of whether you're students, whether you are in a profession, you want to change roles. It's kind of your opportunity to continue to be the better version of yourself. And so I think it's very important to see it as an ongoing thing, something that never stops. Subscribing to magazines that come to your house, your emails that consistently tell you what's going on in your industry, in your field. And those are easy ways on your emails for you to kind of keep your learning ongoing and never stopping. And so that you're never out of touch, you're keeping abreast with everything that's going on within your field, or the field that you want to enter into, so to speak, if that's you know, the situation that you're in. And yeah.
Thank you for that. That was really, really insightful. Now we're just going to talk about, ask some questions and talk about it. Can I just say that if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please raise your hand or put it in the chat below. So my first question is, how can you increase your commercial awareness in your sector? So I know you're HR advisors. How do you increase your commercial awareness?
Increasing your commercial awareness. I think I spoke about that briefly. Sorry, beg your pardon. I'm just trying to adjust this. Okay, so increase your commercial awareness. And like I said, that's, you know, your commercial awareness is, you know, what you know about your industry, how it affects the worlds that we're in, and you can easily, it's not a difficult thing to do. Watching the news more regularly, subscribing to things like, you know, Financial Times, The Times, so you keep abreast what's going on all the time. Every industry has accreditations or like governing bodies. Subscribing to those governing bodies, and just making sure that you know what's going on per time. Speaking to leadership within your organization, so that you know what's going on, even, you know, above you as well, and what's going on within the company, so that you know how your role fits into the wider picture. I think are simple ways to increase commercial awareness. Networking events as well.
Thank you. I believe someone else has a question.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. So I was asking, you mentioned earlier that we should be open about our career goals,
yeah,
with our bosses. What happens, or is there a possibility that could be tagged as being over ambitious? And what happens if that's the case?
I think yes. You know, that is it is a possibility, but think about it in the sense of, okay, could that be the entrance that you need, or could that be the support that you need to get to where you're going? You know, if your boss is an honest person or a practical person, they should be able to tell you that, okay, maybe you want to progress to the next step in 2 years. There's nothing wrong with them telling you that, actually, I think it's going to take you another 4 years. And maybe, you know, with that sort of feedback, asking them, oh, why do you think that is? And if they say, oh, because I think A, B, and C are the things that you're still going to need to learn or do, or experiences that you're still going to need to attain before you get to the next level, then you know that that's your own personal development. You know that you can take that and you can use that to kind of fast track, you know, where you want to get to. So yes, whilst there's, you know, not everyone is going to believe that you can get to where you want to be, but I think as long as you in yourself, you know, and you trust in your capabilities, and you're able to take on any feedback that you receive, then it doesn't really matter whether everyone is on your back or not, because by the time you get to where you want, by the time you take on the feedback, get to where you want to be, I think, you know, no one will dispute that you're ready. If you're truly ready, I don't think, you know, it will be very difficult for people to say, no, you're not ready for this.
Okay, I have another question here. Are there any jobs or careers that we as Christians should not engage with?
Well, I think, you know, increasingly, we as Christians, we need to, you know, be able to be in as many fields as possible. You know, the Bible lets us know that, you know, we are the salt. We should be able to, you know, penetrate as many areas of employment and industries as possible. And I think as long as the role that you're doing isn't in opposition to the word of God, as long as you know within yourself, for example, that you haven't received conviction from God that actually this is not the path for you to go down, as long as, you know, what you're going to be doing in your job isn't going to be grieving the Holy Spirit, then I think there's no limitation to what you as a Christian can do. I think you can, you know, Christians can be artists, they can be singers, because, you know, this is how are other people going to see the light of God in us if we restrict ourselves to only certain careers and say, oh no, I'm a Christian, so I can't do that. You know, you can be the Christian version of this. You can set the lights and set the standard that you want other people to see. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. I believe someone else has a question.
Okay, so I have two questions. First question kind of branched off what Brother Nee said before about telling your manager your intentions about moving forward in the company if possible. Do you think that could hinder your role or your progression in a company?
No, I don't think that can hinder your progression within the company. So if I get you right, what you're saying is does letting your manager know what your progression plan is, can that hinder you from moving on?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
No, I don't think so. Like I said, if you know what you want to do, if you know what you want to do, and you know what you need to do to get there, then I don't think any manager can hinder you, because don't forget, you know, there are thousands of organizations out there. So if you know that you want to go to, you know, a certain level or do a certain thing, and you work your way towards that, even if your company, because the truth is there will be times in your career that your company can no longer accommodate where you are going. They can't accommodate you any further, maybe because they don't have a budget for that, they don't have the vision for that, and you may need to move companies. So I think, you know, no company can limit your growth, because if you want to go to a certain place, I think even if your current company can't offer you that, 100% you can move to a company that will, and there will be hundreds of companies out there that will be able to accommodate that. So yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you. So that was my first question. My second question was, how do you get into a career path that's different from what you studied?
Interesting. I think getting into a career path that's different from what you studied, first of all, depends on what you want to do, what career you want to do. And so obviously some careers will need you to study certain things. And so it may mean that, you know, I don't know whether that's fortunately or unfortunately, it may mean that you have to go back to the drawing board and perhaps maybe study something different. An obvious example, if you want to be a lawyer or an accountant, then you will need to have a certain degree, a certain accreditation. But now there are lots of degrees, you know, whereby people can do lots of different types of jobs, and you don't need to have studied that thing per se. I think it's just been proactive in terms of what the job that you want to do, what it requires, actually understanding what, you know, the practicality of that role is. Trying to, you know, speak and network with people in that industry, in that space, and just putting yourself, you know, forward. You don't have to, you know, you can put yourself forward for, you know, unpaid opportunities, shadowing opportunities. For example, when I finished uni, I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to practice law or do something else. And instead, you know, I shadowed, and I saw actually this is not really something I want to do. Now, how do I get into a different career that I didn't study? I did a master's program, and whilst you may not need to do a master's program, there might be lots of short courses that will give you the skills and give you the ability to put yourself forward for an opportunity. But that's not always, that doesn't always have to be how it works. You don't always have to do a course. Sometimes it's just about putting yourself out there, looking at the skills that you need to do this new job, and thinking, right, what do I have currently that can make me, what skills do I have now that match the skills for this job, and putting yourself forward for that. And just pray for God's favor and God's guidance. Lots of people will say no, but somebody will say yes. And I think as long as you're confident that you yourself can do that job, then one day somebody will see, that will see that potential. 100%.
Thank you. Another question that we have is, what is more important, passion or employability?
Passion or employability? I think there's an aspect of both is definitely important, because you want to have passion, you want to have employability as well. But I kind of think that how employable you are is definitely dependent on you. You decide how employable you want to be. And so, your passion is that thing that motivates you, that drives you, that keeps you going. But you can study something that everyone considers as very, very employable, like medicine, for example, and not be able to secure a job, because maybe you don't have the right personality when you go to interviews, maybe you don't know how to put yourself forward, maybe you don't have resilience. So I think you yourself, you decide how employable you are. You decide how, I think you are the deciding factor of how employable you're going to be. Because I think it's very down to you as a person. What am I going to do to drive myself? And what am I going to do so that other people or potential employers see me and they think, right, I need to have this person? And that's not about your qualifications, because some people, would study something like history and work in banking. Why is that? It's not because they're not using their history degree in the bank, but it's their personality, it's the things that they've picked up. It's their knowledge, and I think I think passion definitely will be what drives you and keeps you going. Employability, that's up to you, as you decide how employable you want to be.
Thank you. Another question is, how do you strike a balance between your 9-to-5 job and your side hustle? So that's your business. How do you strike a balance?
I think it's realizing, what's the most important thing for me. And obviously at the moment, the most important thing for me would be what's driving my business. I can't run my business at the moment, unfortunately, without my 9-to-5. And it's just prioritizing and managing, putting time aside for what I want to do and planning in advance. So obviously I know that I have to attend my 9-to-5, Monday to Friday, 9-to-5. So the rest of the time that I do have, it's, planning, right, what do I need to do and how, and what time, do I have to do that? Because obviously also have to take into consideration my family life. So it's just making time and planning my time in advance, and just being flexible, that when things change, and just being adaptable to that change, I suppose.
Thank you. Oh, we have someone else that has a question.
I'm back again. Hi,
Mrs Tomi. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, just try to speak a bit louder.
Oh, okay, I'll try. Hallelujah. This is not exactly part of what you've mentioned. I think you've mentioned it actually, but I still want you to, elaborate more on it. I think one of the biggest issues that anyone could have in a job or in any chosen path is about staying motivated and staying concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
Concentration and motivation. I mean, I'm a PhD student and I know how much that affects me. Sometimes I can't just concentrate. Other times I'm not even motivated to work, right? As an HR expert, how would you advise someone who is lacking in those things, who is lacking motivation. So maybe someone who started up right, and then along the line, they are losing concentration or they are not motivated anymore. How would you advise someone who's going through that?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that people, regularly go through. I myself have been, many times feel like I've been, very demotivated. I can't really focus. And sometimes it's as easy as just taking a break. Sometimes, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to actually just take a break away from what we do on a daily basis and give ourselves time to just recuperate, give ourselves time to just rest. And, as silly as it may sound, it's one of the most important things that you have to be able to do. Also, you have to be able to balance what you're doing, as well as, balance your life, as well as some other things that you consider fun. And also trying to find, why is the reason, why am I feeling demotivated? Sometimes it's because maybe you've been doing the same thing over and over again. Maybe it's putting a twist on what you're doing and how you do it, or the environment that you're studying in, or the environment that you're working in. I know that a couple of weeks ago, I went to work in my office for a couple of days as opposed to working from home. And I felt a lot more motivated because I changed my environment. And sometimes I just sit down and I say, okay, right, to motivate me, I'm going to change what I'm doing. So for example, if I've been working on, I don't know, a policy for the last week, I change what I'm doing. I do something else. I change the type of work. I diversify the type of work that I'm doing. And I just make sure that, I keep my mental health in check. So when I feel like I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, I just take myself out, and I look after myself. I do the things that I think make me happy. And then I usually come back feeling a lot more refreshed. My head's turned on a lot more. And I just have a new sort of outlook on things. So, that's some of the ways I advise people, even at work, as well. So, yeah.
Thank you for that answer. Talking about you personally, how did you move into HR when you initially studied law, and how you finding HR so far?
So yeah, I studied law, and then I didn't really know what to do with my career. I had done, some shadowing, some work experience, and I knew that at that point, I didn't want to be a solicitor. I didn't want to be a barrister. So where I was working at the time, I started realizing that I always questioned why managers did what they did and why. I always, for example, they had a lot of turnover. So people were always leaving because of things were happening. And I used to always say to myself, why are people leaving? Why aren't managers looking deeper into the reasons why they have turnover? And so I started to think, right, this isn't right. And just randomly one day I started to, search for careers in managing people. That was all. And then HR came up, and I found that it really intertwined a lot with law, in that it's the practice of employment law, and practices and trends. And yeah, I went to do a master's, and even then, having the master's wasn't the automatic entrance into a job. It did still take a while. I had to prove myself because I didn't have experience, obviously. So I had to prove myself to a prospective employer, who then gave me an opportunity, thankfully. And how am I finding it? Great. In a place where I think I'm getting ready for the next step of my career. And so yeah, I'm preparing, and I'm praying.
Fantastic. You said you had limited experience. How did you make yourself stand out to your current employer?
Yeah, so my employer before this employer, obviously I had nothing on my CV, and so I was applying to tons of jobs, and everyone was like, no, you don't have any experience, you don't have any experience. So then I said, okay, that's fine. So I literally started to read on what I went on LinkedIn. I looked at a standard HR person that was advising, and I looked at everything that that person was doing on their day-to-day, and I started to read on what they were doing. I started to think about, okay, if I was in an interview and I was asked, how would you handle a disciplinary, what would I say? So I started to read up on that. Even though, you know, I had learnt that in theory, in practice it's very different. I reached out to people on LinkedIn and I spoke to people and asked people questions. You know, I had a friend who had also done a HR, so I would ask her tons of questions. How would you handle, you know, a case like this? What would you do if it was this? And I just continued to reach out to people. And so when I got to an interview and I was asked questions, I answered them as if I was in a job already, because I had taken time to learn and to study and to reach out and to ask for help. And yeah, the literal words when I was offered my first role as an advisor was that they saw how much passion I had, and it was clear that I had been speaking to people who were already advising, and so they wanted to give me an opportunity. So I think you have to be proactive. You have to be proactive and think about, you know, what's this job I want to go into? What does it require? And try as much as possible to learn at least a theory of that, so that if somebody asks you, you can answer confidently. Yeah.
Thank you. What advice would you give to anyone studying law at the moment?
If you're studying law at the moment, I think the biggest advice that I would give you again is be wide open to networking, and ask people who are already in the industry. You know, go to law fairs and career fairs. Everything's virtual now. Lots of companies have internship opportunities. I know that when I did law, my university offered a year of placement, and I didn't do that. But had I known, actually, it's one of the things I wish that I had done, was actually do a year of placement, because what that does is that it gives you an idea of what you would be doing, and it kind of it just places you at a much higher advantage than somebody who's a fresh graduate. So I think definitely apply to as many internships as you can. There's lots of day events that you can attend at law firms, which is very, very possible. You can ring up law firms around your area and ask them for shadowing opportunities. Some people will say no, but some people will say yes, especially if you're a law student. They're not going to say, oh, we have GDPR too tough. They will grant you an opportunity, and just keep your eye out on job boards all the time, so that you can see opportunities, and don't leave applying to things too late. For example, I know that there's grad schemes and stuff usually open in the end of the year, like December this time, and just kind of keeping an eye out for that as well, as much as possible. And if you secure a good internship or a summer placement or something like that, then sometimes you've already secured yourself a training contract. So I think just being really, really proactive. And also another thing is trying to speak to people in the years above you, and just seeking for help, because sometimes you have your essays and you have your work, and sometimes just asking people for help and advice on the work that you've done, asking someone to proofread your work, because your grades will mean a lot. It could be the reason why you never get a summer placement or why you never get a training contract. So ask for help as much as you can. And yeah, just make sure that's what you want to do.
Okay, just following up your what you just said. You said we should get law students should get internship. My question is, does the internship have to be just law based, or can it be non-law based internship?
Well, if you know that you want to practice law, then yes, it would need to be a law internship, in a firm. It doesn't have to be a big firm. It could even be with your counsel, but a law internship or law placement, yes, because then that's the experience that you need to gather, especially if that's what you want to do. But if you're someone that's kind of like, oh, I'm not sure, is it for me, is it not for me, then you can, you know, try to secure a placement within a law firm, and you can try and secure another placement as well through your summer. You have, you know, through your 3 years, you have 3 summers, so you can do three summer internships. There's Christmas placements that you can do as well. So yeah.
Okay, someone is asking, what do you do if your parents do not support your career?
I think there is a lot of, I know that definitely our parents, you know, they don't want to push us into the wrong things. But I think it's understanding, you know, being able to understand why, you know, your parents don't want you to do the career or the job that they've said. But ultimately, I think for parents, you know, who are watching, parents have to realize that, you know, what your child wants to do is, you know, it's the passion, and hopefully the passion, by the grace of God, that God has placed within them. And it's very important for you to be able to, you know, recognize that. I know for a lot of people who come from, you know, very, you know, certain backgrounds, if you aren't, you know, a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, or an accountant, many of our parents don't necessarily, you know, it's just that they're not aware of these other opportunities. So sometimes it's enlightening your parents, enlightening them, and, you know, taking them along with you when you go to career fair, you know, getting them to speak to people, you know, that in the career that you want to go to. I think ultimately just praying. I don't want anyone to, you know, disobey their parent, but I think also, you know, parents who are watching, it's just seeking as much guidance as possible so that you don't push your child into something that actually is not what they want to do, and they won't be happy. And just praying, you know, praying for God's intervention, really, because I know that it can cause issues within families. But I think it's just enlightening our parents. Sometimes it's not because they don't want you to do that. It's just because they don't really know about that. You know, if you tell your mom, I want to work, for example, I want to do fintech, many parents may not even know what that is. So I think it's just enlightening them so they, you know, they have a bit more knowledge, and maybe doing your own research as well. Many times because they think, oh, are you even going to find a job afterwards? You know, enlightening them about, you know, the employability prospects of the career that you want to go into, different people that have done it and how they've been successful, the reason why you genuinely want to do that, and hopefully, you know, being able to tell them that God has, you know, confirmed to you that this is what he wants you to do. Yeah.
Thank you for that. The question I have here is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to make a decision, but their passion and their skills are not linked together? So their skills is farming, but their passion is medicine.
So their skills is what, sorry?
Farming. Oh, passion is farming, sorry, and their skills medicine.
So repeat the question.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to make a decision, but their passion and skills are not linked? So their passion is farming and their skills is medicine.
So are they trying to go for what their skills want or what their passion wants?
What their passion wants.
Well, I think
they're not really sure.
Well, okay. I mean, one, like I said earlier, is that there's only so much, you know, you get to a place in your career that if you're not really passionate about what you're doing, you're going to struggle, and you're probably going to find yourself wanting to have a career change anyway. So I'd always say that, you know, go for what you think that you're very, very passionate about. Skills you can always pick up, you know, skills you can always learn skills, you can always develop skills, you can always, you know, sharpen and polish on skills. But if you have a passion for something, then I believe that that's because God has enabled you to have that passion. And so the skills that you need to do that thing, even if you don't have, you know, even if you don't have the experience to do that thing, you can easily pick up the skills and learn the skills. And also as well, just dropped in my mind that, you know, there's some passions that you have that won't be your career. You know, there's some passions that you have that may be, you know, a side hustle, as you called it earlier. So, you know, it's just creating that balance of, is this what I want to do as a career, or is this something that I can do, you know, alongside my career, and maybe in the future, you know, it could be then your long-term thing, that could be your permanent thing, that could be your full-time thing, but just creating a balance of, you know, what you want at that point in your life. But passions don't always have to be careers. Like, passions can be something that you turn into another source of income. So if you have a skill in something that can easily turn into your career, so i.e. medicine, and then you have a, you know, another thing for farming on the side, yeah, of course, you can also, you know, harness those skills and do both, balance them out. Passions don't always have to be career choices. It's just a matter of, you know, where you are at that point in your life.
All right. Thank you very much for the response to that question. However, I was going to ask, you know, we've thrown around the word passion.
Sorry, use your yes, a little bit better now.
Okay, I said we've thrown around the word passion. So how exactly do you define passion? Because
how do I describe, did you say?
Yeah, define passion. Because I'm looking at it from like a perspective of an 18-year-old who is very youthful and sees himself or herself as one with the capacity to do a lot of things. At the time, he's trying to make decisions, and there is kind of nothing you throw at him or her at the time that they might not be able to do very well. And because they are excelling in those things, does that mean they are passionate about those things? So how do we narrow down the word passion to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm passionate about? This is because, yeah, like I say, an 18-year-old would want to do a lot of things, but how do you narrow down that passion to bring out the best and to be able to say, okay, this is where I'm centering my energy on? How do you define that particular passion, that one passion that you know that when you launch into it, you'll be able to excel very well in it?
I think for me, and obviously if there's anyone else, you know, in the audience that wants to contribute to that, then, you know, feel free. But I think for me, a passion is something that, in the midst of all of the other desires that you have, this one thing or this two things is the thing that stands out the most. It's the thing that becomes your priority, and it's the thing that you think, actually, no matter what, this thing is always something that I want to be a part of my life. This thing is always something that I need. I want it. There's always going to be that one thing that oversees everything else. You know, there's yeah, we all have lots of, you know, passions. Like at some point, my passion was, you know, was fashion, and then it was makeup, and then it was skincare, and then it was blogging. And I was very passionate about all of those things, but none of them was the one thing that I wanted to focus on for the next few years. And I think for someone who's 18, you know, to be realistic with you, sometimes, you know, you enter university and study a course, and that's not what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So I think it's important for you to be able to, you know, identify, you know, one thing that you think you're going to, you know, you can see yourself doing for a long time, but at the same time being open and flexible to the fact that that may not be what you do for the rest of your life. At times, you know, life changes happen, things happen, we get new opportunities, new things come into play, and we get presented with all of these different things through the course of our lives and through the course of our careers. So yeah, for somebody who's, you know, who's young and has many passions, you will have many passions and many things that you feel, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. But there's always that one thing that you feel is a lot stronger than the others. At least it was for me. But I think it's a very, very good question. And I think if anyone has, you know, anything they want to contribute to that, I think it's a good question. So if anyone wants to add to that, then they're more than welcome to do so.
All right. Thank you very much. I think I kind of picked something from that. And then at large, I was going to ask, why do we have to develop ourselves? Yeah. Why can't I just be...
Why do we have to...
Develop yourself. Why do you have to be better than you are? can't I just be a random person? Why do I have to be important? Why do I have to be noticed? Why do I have to stand out? Why do I have to subject myself to the pressure of becoming better than I am? What's the end? What is like the end game of personal development?
Okay, I think it's a good question. The truth is, obviously, especially within like my career, I think I've seen that not everybody wants to develop themselves, and some people are very, very happy just being basic. But I don't think that's what God has called us to do. I think God has called us to, to be able to, to be the best of ourselves. And He told, we know that He's enabled us with so much strength. And He's told us that, the world is really awaiting our manifestation. And so if God has placed something in your heart, and God has put a desire in you, and you've kind of pursued that desire, then, we owe it to God. Definitely, we owe it to God, we owe it to ourselves to make sure that, we continue to be the best version of ourselves. We continue to, to kind of work towards what God, desires for us to be. I think God desires us to be the best of ourselves. And it would be a shame for us to return back to our Maker unfulfilled. I think being basic means that you haven't fulfilled, that which God has placed in your hands. And so I think it's very important for us to continue to develop, because that's what God has asked us to do. He's given us the gifts. He's given us the talents, and He doesn't expect for those talents to just be unused. He doesn't expect the talents to just be just covered up. God expects us to open up. God expects, us to show our light, and He expects us to continue to get better and better. And also, people of the world are going to be getting better, are going to be doing amazing, amazing things. So what's the excuse for us as believers? That's not our excuse. Like, we definitely have to recognize that we need to be the best of ourselves, so that people can look at us and they can be like, wow, how have you gotten to, this point of your life? And we can tell them that it's because God has enabled that within us, and God has strengthened us to do that. Definitely, we're not called to a basic life. We're called to a life of fulfillment, and we're called to a life of establishment, and a life of, of fruitfulness. So I think, it's not an option for us as Christians to just live basic lives. No, anyone that wants to live a basic life, we won't let you, not in this church.
Thank you. I believe that Dr. Aluko has a contribution.
So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
If you, I hope you can all hear me.
Yes.
I think it's been an absolutely enlightening session. So thank you for that, to our guest speaker. I was just going to add a bit to the last question, talking about why do you need to subject yourself to improve? I think in addition to what's been said, it's necessary for each one of us to recognize that the future version of yourself will require a better version of yourself. So the person that your tomorrow needs would have to be better than the person that you are today. Except, of course, you are not, looking to see tomorrow, which hopefully is not the case for many people. So if you have an intention of a tomorrow in mind, the person that your tomorrow requires would have to be a better version of who you are today. And for us as Christians, Matthew chapter 5, 15 to 15, 15 to 16. If I could just read it out here, it says, Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. It says, so let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So for us as Christians, there is this divine mandate that you've got to be excellent, such that your excellence can attract people to your God. So in addition to all that's been said, I think that those 2 points are also quite, important. That you need to be better because the version of you that is required for tomorrow will have to be better than the version of you that is present today. And 2, your excellence draws people towards your God. Amen.
Amen. A summary in one sentence. Yes, so I think as a summary, our personal, just going from the last thing that we talked about, our personal development and our career aspirations are very much, down to us. We are in control as much as it goes of, how we develop. We definitely need to have, good support systems around us. And we definitely need to kind of, work on key skills, that will help us and propel us, in whatever we want to do. And even if, the career that we want to go into is the career that we don't have the education for example, we are in control of making sure that we have, we do everything it takes to get there. God has given us more than the ability to be the best whatever we do. And so as long as we do our part, God is always going to have our backs, and he's always going to enable us to do the best in everything that we do.